Breaker Crunchers, welcome to an exciting new episode of Couch Crunchers. I am your host tonight, Lance. With me, I have Tyler and the Shin Guard, Sam, and our special guest, Matt from the Absolute Geek Podcast.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me, as always. It's good to be here.
And whoever's clicking on their keyboard needs to mute their microphone.
Yeah, Tyler. Jeez Louise, what's going on there? He's not tapping on his keyboard. He's opening candies.
I've been eating since breakfast, guys.
So tonight we are going to talk about The Old Guard, the new Netflix movie starring Charlize Theron. But before we do that, I want to talk to you guys about maybe something that you guys have been watching. I think all of us have already started the Umbrella Academy, but is there anything else that you guys wanted to give a shout out to?
Yeah, there is. I know a lot of the stuff that I bring to the table is probably alternative media, maybe some foreign media, but I have really been digging Kevin James's YouTube channel. He does every Friday. He produces like a 2 to 3 minute short, and they're fantastic. They always hit you with a curveball. Usually you end up laughing, but sometimes you're just like, yeah, wow, that's true. Or I never thought of it that way, but he's really cranking out some really great material. And so if you haven't been watching his shorts, I think it's about time. He's got about 12 weeks worth of shorts on his channel. And the last one I probably watched 4 times because there's a left turn about 2/3 of the way through, and it cracked me up.
Yeah, my favorite one is where he's a mic operator for
the Sound Guy series. Yeah, those are really great.
What does Adam Sandler do in it?
He's not part of it.
What?
There's no Adam Sandler.
That usually make any sense.
They're usually one-man shows. It's usually just Kevin James. So he's really, really funny. They're all probably ideas that he just develops over the course of a week, and then he films them.
They're little shorts. They're like little shorts. But, dude, you can go get them from Redbox now.
You can get his shorts from Redbox?
I saw his advertisements on Redbox. Like, I guess you can rent them from Redbox or something.
Like as a collection?
I guess. I don't know. I didn't walk up to the Redbox because nothing decent has come out that's made me walk over to the Redbox. But when I'm walking out Walmart, I see an advertisement for Kevin James's shorts.
Well, I think they're
like
great.
his literal shorts. Get Kevin James brand cargo shorts.
Available at Redbox near you.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how they'd come out that little slot on the side. You know, they're like vacuum pressed, well folded and
vacuum sealed.
Well, I just finished Dead Like Me. Have you guys seen that show?
No.
It's from Showtime. It was like, I want to say early 2000s that show came out, and that one was pretty dang good. It's only 2 seasons, and then they follow up a couple years later with a movie. So I haven't watched the movie yet, but I intend to. But if you guys haven't seen that show, it's on Amazon Prime. It's fantastic. Basically, they're a group of Grim Reapers, and they have to like get these souls of these people before they pass. So they get this every morning they get this notice of somebody that's going to pass, and they have to go reap their soul before they pass, or else they're going to be like trapped in their body and stuff. But it's a comedy, so it's not even like as dark as I'm trying to as what I'm saying it is. It's like really funny. It's a great show, and it has Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride in it.
Nice.
Yeah, the actor. So he's really good. And then the other one, Umbrella Academy, of course. And I've really been into this season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't know if you guys have watched it.
Oh, is the new season out?
Yeah, it's like 7 or 8 episodes in.
Oh.
I said 2 weeks ago in your chat that Tyler is the only guy that does a movie podcast that doesn't watch any movies. So why does that response not surprise me?
Yeah, this is not a movie, so it doesn't count.
Well,
it still counts, man.
It counts. We're a movie and television show podcast. But I've been talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for the last like 4 or 5 weeks.
Some say Tyler's still opening the bag of whatever he's eaten this entire time, so he hasn't paid attention.
You know, Tyler.
Nutri-Grain.
Tyler's still watching Stuber every weekend.
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't I? That's the real question.
You know what? So aside from Stuber, did you guys watch Camille Nanjiani's new movie? It's not The Honeymooners.
The Lovebirds.
Yeah, it was better than Stuber.
No, I didn't watch it. I was watching this. My wife and I were sitting down trying to decide if we were going to watch The Lovebirds or Laughing Out Loud, or no, Last One Laughing, which is Rebel Wilson's.
Oh yeah,
comedy,
the Australian thing.
Yeah, this Australian comedy show, and it was. Oh man, that got weird real quick. So there's this board game called Don't Make Me Laugh, and it's basically a live action version of Don't Make Me Laugh. And the idea is you want to be the last one to crack someone up, but without cracking yourself up. And as an example, this one time I was playing with my family, and my brother was about to win, and my other brother, in a moment of desperation, pulled his pants down and mooned him to try and get him to crack. But his wife, the brother who we were trying to get to laugh, his wife was like right in his face, so he didn't even see the butt exposed. Everyone else did, and we were all destroyed, but he never did.
So his wife basically protected him from a full-on mooning.
That's exactly the kind of stuff that happens in the show. Like, they get desperate immediately, and people start getting naked immediately. And it's just, it is disgusting. It's bonkers. It's weird.
It's a little bit ironic using your crack to get someone to crack, right?
It is, yeah. Fire with fire.
No,
it's some funny moments.
From the trailer, it looked like a mix between like Big Brother or Real World and like Last Comic Standing, essentially.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to describe it.
But there's different iterations. Like there's a Mexico City one, there's an Australian one that Rebel Wilson hosts. If you go on Amazon, there's like 6 or 7 different versions of the show from different countries.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, what about you, Matt? Are you watching anything good?
My life is pretty much spent on HBO Max right now for my consuming stuff. So I've already finished on the 2nd season of Umbrella Academy. I thought it was fantastic.
Gosh, I'm 1 episode in.
Really? Yeah, I've already done with all 10. Been watching a lot of Close Enough. If you're a regular show fan from Cartoon Network, JG Quintel does a show on HBO Max called Close Enough. That's very much like regular show. It's like an adult version of regular show. And that's been fun. Patton Oswalt's wife's the documentary and the book his wife wrote, I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
I've been meaning to watch that one.
That's been absolutely fantastic. And then Doom Patrol Season 2 has been absolutely phenomenal. So
do you like this season of Doom Patrol better than last?
Yes, 100%.
Really?
Yep.
I feel like this season has been less weird so far.
I don't. And I like the way they've kind of incorporated. Are you caught up on it?
I think I'm 1 episode behind.
I like the way they incorporate those shorts in the middle of the episode, though. So, like when Cliff's pitching Steel and Stone.
Yeah.
Those like short clips inside of clips. I really like that.
So that I always compare that whenever I see shows doing that. I always compare it to like Family Guy, because I think Family Guy is like one of the first real shows to like do that on the regular, like little shorts.
Family Guy is more of like a remember that time type thing, and this is kind of like an alternate like daydream reality of what I'm talking about.
If you like that kind of stuff, you should watch The Hunters on Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
because they do the same thing. That show is very good. I don't know if I've talked about it on this show before, but The Hunters is basically this team of Jewish people right after the war that find out that the government smuggled these Nazis in and gave them new names and like erased their backgrounds and everything like that, and started putting them them into government programs like NASA and stuff like that to help with like the space race and everything like that. And a lot of this is true, but it's done from a fantasy standpoint where this group, including Robert De Niro and is it Robert De Niro or Al Pacino? I have both their faces in my head and I'm trying to remember which one's in it. and Logan Lerman, and they're basically going and they're killing these Nazis that the government basically brought into the country and forgave their war crimes. But nice. That's on Amazon Prime. It's very good. Tyler, what about you? What are you watching?
Watching some older stuff with my wife right now. I watched it so long ago that I'm rewatching the episodes and I'm just like, I don't remember what happens this episode. But there's Eureka.
Oh, dude, I watched that forever ago. That's one of my favorite shows ever.
Yeah,
that show's good, man.
Yeah, I really like it. It's just, for people who don't know, it's just kind of a sci-fi around 2008 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there's also Leverage, which is a little bit older show too. And that's a show about some people with different skills that end up, getting together and making a team, and they're kind of like the A-Team, I guess. Like people who need help, like find them and contact them, and then they fix the problem. It's
just a government program to clone Liam Neeson, so they all have a particular set of skills.
Is Leverage the one that Kevin Bacon wife's wife is in? Is that one?
I don't know who Kevin Bacon is.
That's the closer.
The closer. Who's in Leverage?
There's not really big names in Leverage.
Well, you don't know really anyone, so I don't know if I'd take your word for it.
Give me a break.
He knows who Camille Nanjiani and Dave Bautista are, though.
That's true. I know both of those people.
Timothy Hutton is the main guy. He kind of runs the team.
Has Tyler showed you guys his Studer back tattoo yet?
Well,
he's got 5-star tattooed on the back at his back.
Oh, Clayne Crawford's in it.
I don't know, won't hurt her situation.
Yeah.
Mark Shepard's in it too from Supernatural.
Yeah, but who cares about that show?
Oh, everybody.
Just kidding.
That's a lie. Lie detector detected that was a lie.
Yeah, there's not like any superstars in it, but I like the cast. Kristen Kane is pretty good, and I think he has a new show that's coming out soon.
Yeah. So this isn't on the air anymore then?
No. Both of these have been done for a while. This was Leverage was 2008 to 2012, but it's pretty good.
TNT, basic cable, scripted series. Along the lines of like The Librarians or
Franklin
and
Bash. Do you guys remember that one?
Franklin and Bash, yeah, that's a good example too.
A little bit higher quality than The Librarian.
Well, this is more like Burn Notice is really what it's like.
Yeah, it was TNT's version of a
Burn Notice
sleuth type show, right?
Well, it's like using bad guys to do good things.
Yeah.
Burn Notice was about spies who had been dumped by the CIA, and so they were using their spy skills to help people. And Leverage is about criminals being put together in a team to help people who need help. And but without superpowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still think it's more like the A-Team. I mean, like, the A-Team wasn't criminals, but, like, yeah, it's just a team of people who, like, there's a special way to get a hold of them, and they all have different skills, and, yeah.
Man, I really want to know how much you pay for that Omegle, overscreen you got there, Lance.
Which one? What did he say?
I want to know how much you pay for that Omegle looking overlay you got there with all your pixelatedness, and you look like that creepy guy you come to Omegle and he just sits there and smiles at you.
He's giving you a hard time because
am I freezing up?
Frame rate.
Yeah,
your frame rate is dropping.
Let me switch to direct input. Give me a sec.
Gonna lose the whole
All right,
shit.
is that better?
That's better, yeah.
All right. I thought I had already done that. So, but yeah, how far are you in Eureka, Tyler?
Right now, I think we just started season 2.
Yeah, it gets weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt, Sam, have you guys seen Eureka?
No.
So this is the post-apocalyptic or maybe apocalyptic tale, and then the aliens show up. Is that?
No, Eureka is basically they take all the world's like smartest people and they put them in this town essentially. So this town is just made of genius level people, but then they have a sheriff. It follows the sheriff around, and the sheriff is just like normal IQ, but they're like all restricted into this town essentially, and they basically it's been a while since I've seen it, but they basically are responsible for all the Earth's like progressions in technology, right, Tyler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Max
What?
just slammed you in the chat.
Oh my gosh. How do you boot somebody from this?
Oh man, I didn't mean to interrupt that conversation, but I just read that and just like, oh man.
Max is in timeout for 5 minutes.
Wait a second. It says message deleted. I didn't get to read it.
That's because Lance put him in timeout.
Oh,
Basically, he
man.
said that's always Lance's connection. It's always slow. That's why he has 5 kids, because he can't time his pullout.
Says the guy that has been freezing up more than me lately. Have you guys seen? You can't even do the podcast with him anymore. His house, the cell phones don't even work in his house.
Maybe
So-
that's
Okay,
good.
well, you know,
He
maybe
can
he's
talk
got-
a lot of trash when he's not on the show.
Maybe he's got government secrets to hide. You never know.
So yeah, Eureka. I thought you were laughing at what I said about Eureka. I'm like, I don't.
No.
I'm missing it here. Like, I don't understand. But no, it's really good. You guys should watch it. And it's from the Sci-Fi Network, I think, right, Tyler?
Oh, I don't know.
Are you-
We're watching it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
So-
I definitely recommend that.
I got an interesting show for you guys if you're looking for something. And since we're shut down again, to watch on Netflix, it's called The Glitch.
The Glitch.
Yeah, have you heard of it?
Is that the
heard
one
of it.
where the people are coming
Come back to life.
Yep, it's an
Yeah,
Australian.
I watched that one a couple years ago. I think it was.
They just
the second-
recently released the new season.
The new season came out.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I haven't followed it because the first season I think I saw like 2 years ago or something like that, and I
It's a
haven't
good
followed
show.
it since. No, that show's awesome. It's my wife and I got really into that, but it reminded us a bit of the 44. Is it the 4400? Was that other show that was kind of like that?
yeah, I think so.
But it's a
But
bit
I think
more
it
thought
technically
out.
came out before that show.
He got on
I-
another profile.
Max got on another profile because I put him in timeout. Yeah, that one's really good. And then the other one on Netflix, if you guys want one like that's not super well known, is The Rain. The Rain is really good too, where it like basically turns people psychotic if they touch the rain or something like that. But that one's Australian or Swedish or something. I don't remember. I haven't seen it in a while, but well, let's get into our main topic of discussion tonight, the Old Guard. So we have all seen it. Tyler, hopefully you didn't turn it
Yeah.
off halfway through this time, did you?
No.
Tyler comes on to watch Hamilton. First words out of his mouth, I didn't watch it all.
He's
couldn't
he's
get
I'm like,
trying,
oh, this is gonna be riveting conversation.
he's trying to be the Kyle of Couch Crunchers. He just comes on. It's like
Well-
I didn't watch it.
Well, Tyler at least stuck it out for half of it. Kyle will come on, tell you he watched the movie, then come on and admit he never saw it. Like in good movies too. I think we had him on to watch Spider-Man Homecoming or Far From Home or something like that.
Yeah, far from.
Found
home.
out within 10 minutes he hadn't watched any of it.
I see what I deal with every week now.
I love Kyle. Though, man. You're lucky to have him. Kyle's great. But yeah, so we all saw The Old Guard. It's starring Charlize Theron. It's based off a graphic novel of the same name. And it was different. So I hadn't watched any trailers regarding this movie before I saw it, and so I didn't know what to expect. Did it, after you guys saw the trailers and then watched the movie, did it live up to your expectations, or were you wanting more? Let's start with Matt.
I think it lived up to mine. I mean, I watched this. I'll be honest. I watched this movie the day it came out, and I haven't watched it again since.
Yeah.
So I'm pulling fully off memory here. So you guys are I'm gonna piggyback off you guys here a little bit and try to remember. But it did. I know Kyle and I reviewed this comic on our show when it came out, and it was a tough read. It was a tough read then, and even now I kind of feel like I liked the movie because I think I liked it because there weren't a lot of trailers for it. It was just the one, I believe, and then it came out.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't all that hype built around about it. But I think it was just because it was something different. And when you're in a time where we're missing movies and we're not getting these huge blockbusters week after week after week, it was a little change of pace from Tiger King documentaries or whatever else you're watching streaming on Netflix. So
or superhero TV shows
or any romantic comedies and things like that you're getting, or whatever Adam Sandler movie they're putting on Netflix this week. And it was a nice change of pace, and I think that's why I liked it so much. But I believe that it did live up to the hype for me after seeing the trailer.
Yeah. Sam, what about you?
I didn't see any trailers other than passing as I was browsing through Netflix. It would give me a little tidbit here and there. As far as hype, I wasn't aware of any hype for this movie other than the texting and the Facebook post that you guys made. I didn't really enjoy it that much, so I would say that it did not live up to the hype.
No, I guess there wasn't any hype leading up to it, but it's after the fact, because I think it broke a bunch of Netflix records, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
As far as viewership and stuff for a debut of a movie. But Tyler, what do you think? What did you think about this movie?
I hadn't really seen the trailer. When you're like scrolling through Netflix and you see like trailers start to play, or like you'll see a middle of something. That's basically it. So I didn't really know a ton about it. But I did see a lot of people on Facebook saying it was really good before I watched it, and I really liked it, so I enjoyed it.
I know. So Sam and I talked briefly in our text group about this. I loved the movie. It was not at all what I expected, because there was a couple things that, as I was drifting through Netflix, that didn't really, I don't know, like the marketing of this movie just wasn't there. First of all, the logo for the movie, I thought it was going to be something completely different. Like I thought it was like this, like going to be like this cop drama thing. I had no idea. I never even heard of this comic before. And the other thing is Charlize Theron is in it. So I thought she was just going to be like this brooding police chick this whole time. Like I had no idea what to expect. But within the first 5 minutes of the movie, I was hooked. That scene when they're in that warehouse, and we're getting into spoilers now, but they're in a warehouse, and they walk into this warehouse and they just get lit up from this group. And I'm like, well, that's a weird way to start the movie. They just basically killed every main actor, and then they just kind of pop up, have a Wolverine moment where bullets are popping out of their head and everything like that. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm sold. I'm definitely going to watch the rest of this thing. And from that point, my wife said, not for me. And she walked out of the room.
So before we get into spoilers, though, and I don't want to take your show, but do you want to kind of explain to your audience maybe what Old Guard's about in case they haven't seen it? So maybe they have a little backstory.
Yeah, the Old Guard is essentially a group of mercenaries, I guess you could call them. Like not mercenaries, but they're kind of like a covert ops, I guess. They're a group of people that are they're incapable of being, they're not incapable, they're unable to be killed. So they're essentially immortal. And each one is from like a different time period. So they never know when somebody new is going to join their group. And they never know when their powers are going to wear off. That was the other nice little addition that I liked, is that eventually their powers could just wear off and they could eventually die. And you find that out pretty quickly. But they basically go through and they do these special ops and they save people and they kill people and they're responsible for all these good things that have happened in the world. And the protagonist in this movie wants to experiment on them to make a pharmaceutical drug to try.
Antagonist or villain.
Antagonist. What did I say? Protagonist? I meant antagonist. Yeah. So it basically wants to recreate their powers to sell it as a pharmaceutical drug to profit from it. And
coronavirus, so we can all go back to conventions.
Well, and it depends on how you look at it, right? As far as who the protagonist and antagonist were.
Well, why?
Some people could have been on Thanos' side. I mean,
this guy was pretty evil. I mean, like anybody that wants to steal people to experiment on them, that's no good. Against their will, on top of it all. But lab rats is one thing. Human beings is another. Now, don't sick PETA on me, people. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to get super into it without really spoiling. I mean, it's a group of people that can't be killed.
You nailed it. You did good. Good job.
Did I do good without any spoilers?
Good job. Yeah, good job.
I kind of stumbled over my words a little bit.
Here's something they didn't explore in the movie, though. Like the idea of cutting their heads off.
Well, is that Highlander? Is that what you're going for?
That's what I was going for. Highlander. Like they didn't. Like, did they grow their heads back? Like we never get their heads chopped.
Maybe it's like a Deadpool thing. Like the body grows from the head. You know, like you get a full Winnie the Pooh moment.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah,
that's what I was wondering through the whole movie. Nobody talked about it. Like they talked about like people shooting them and stuff, but.
Well, you would assume. I mean, you saw in the first scene, like she pushes a bullet out from her head, right? So she obviously got shot in the brain, and it killed her. But that would be the whole thing. Like if you cut their head off, I mean, you're destroying the brainstem, right? So obviously, cutting the head off, in my mind, wouldn't work because they can basically reheal from anything.
So what you're going to get is a Deadpool moment where it's just going to be this little itty bitty baby body and this giant head.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to throw that in.
I wanted to see
that kind of movie.
I wanted to see that too, though. Like I was waiting for that. Like Sam, I know Sam will get this reference and Tyler might too, but I was kind of waiting for that Piccolo moment where you see someone get their arm chopped off and then just out of it comes their nub is like, brah, and then, you know, a new arm grows. So, but
well,
you didn't really get that
a little bit. Like, was his name Book or Brooke or Booker? He gets blasted to pieces in this one scene, and basically his entire mid piece is practically missing, right? And we see it kind of rejoining. But you're right, there was no limbs that were detached that they had to regrow. The thing that I thought was so cool was they were talking about this woman being buried at the bottom of the ocean and basically drowning for an eternity, right?
We're getting into more spoilers now, right?
Yeah. But basically, I was thinking, I was like, wouldn't like the moment she woke up, her lungs still be filled with water and she would drown like immediately? Like
that's what they said. That's what they said was happening to her.
But like when it showed her video, it looked like she was alive for a few minutes.
But she was constantly drowning and then reviving and then drowning and then reviving for 500 years.
It's insane. But that's what I'm excited for, is to see that relationship progress, because they were already doing a sequel.
Yeah, but here's the deal, Lance.
Yeah.
I'm going to say a phrase, and this is why I have the biggest problem. This is why I wasn't entertained by this movie, is because they skipped this concept. They didn't explore the idea of fate's worse than death. They mention the one in passing, and then they never talk about it again. And if this is your first foray into the old guard, why wouldn't you put the most interesting part of the story forward, right? You have these warriors and they can't be killed. Okay, so then what's the fate that is worse than death for them? Well, they talk about one of them, this woman drowned at the bottom of the ocean, but they didn't explore it very much. And in fact, they didn't even bring her, like, spoiler alert, she appears at the end, right? She's the sequel. She's what the sequel's about. But they didn't explore it. It was the most interesting part of this whole show to me. I didn't care about the pharmaceutical company because they're immortal. They're going to get out in the end anyway. It's also really weird that the instant that they talk about being immortal and they're all kind of like longing for death, or they don't care about death, death has no thrill or no threat to them. And then Charlize Theron's character starts to die and she can't heal anymore. And it's like, okay, well,
there's
really want that. Yeah, but it's so boring. I really want to see.
It's poor storytelling.
I really want to see the idea of what are the fates worse than death for these people, and what does it do to someone to be drowning and reviving on a constant basis for 500 years? What does it take? What does it do to someone? What levels of insanity are they going through? That, to me, there were all these interesting questions wrapped up in that one possibility of a character at the bottom of the ocean than there were in any of the pharmaceutical villains. It was like they had these two choices. Do we go corporate villain or really, really interesting kind of layered person who suffered for centuries at the bottom of the ocean? And they go, let's go with the generic corporate pharmaceutical villain. And I was so frustrated by that. And that's why I didn't enjoy it, because everything after that choice seemed so generic to me. You see corporate baddies 100 times if you've seen them once.
Yeah.
But they have this really interesting thing. And like, I'm going to make a weird analogy here, but think about like a dry aged steak. If you dry age it for 2 weeks, it gets it's fine. But if you dry age it for 2 months, it gets a little funky. But if you dry age it for 6 months, it gets back to these really interesting layers and these really interesting flavors. And it's like, well, this woman's brain is essentially dry aging at the bottom of the ocean. And it's going through all these different layers of insanity where she may be, becoming a very hateful person, and then a forgiving person, and then hateful again. And what kinds of layers of suffering is she experiencing over these 500 years? And they did, there was this really great moment that we'll never get to see, which is her cracking out of the bonds that she was in at the bottom of the ocean. And so they decided they were going to just tease us with that and save it for the sequel. Well, my problem with that is you should never save your most interesting storyline for a sequel, because you may never get it. Think about Iron Fist, which was really a dumb show for the most of it. But in the very last episode of the second season, all these people have Iron Fist powers. And I was like, finally, this is cool. Let's see what happens now. But it's the last episode, and they never made another season. So you'll never get to see what that was like.
Yeah.
And with the old guard, they gave us two choices, and they took the lamer of the two. And because of that choice, I didn't enjoy the rest of the movie at all. I thought it was very generic, tired tropes, and I wish they had explored the idea of like a dry-aged brain at the bottom of the ocean. That's kind of where I was hoping it was going to go.
But if they would have went after that, because I agree with you, I think that's the more interesting story. But if they would have went after that story, would they have been able to focus on the backstory of the team as much? Or would
absolutely.
Because I think Andy and the woman at the bottom of the ocean, I think her name was Queenie or Quinn. I think they would have been the focal point, and the other four people would have been completely ignored.
No, absolutely not. You have every time she gets a new person, the new person says, well, hey, if this person's at the bottom of the ocean, we should go find them.
Yeah.
And then they all adopt that mission. And every time they decide it's useless, it's hopeless, they can't do it. And then if you want the corporate baddies, make the corporate baddies the ones with the way or the means to get her out. And it's their quest to get her out before the immortals do. And then it's kind of like a race to free this person. And then when she's finally cracked open, we see what kind of hell she's about to unleash. And we have no idea what it's going to be. And it could have been any number of interesting or layered things going on. And she may have been able to inflict fates worse than death on the immortals. And I was, as they were talking about that one character, like my mind just was like exploring all those possibilities. And so I was really, really disappointed that they didn't even do one.
I agree with what you're saying, Sam. But I think that this movie, when you sit down and watch it, it's a tale of two different movies. Because it's like they almost were trying to redeem Charlize Theron and give her that badass action heroist role that she couldn't get in Atomic Blonde. She tried but didn't pull off Atomic Blonde and all those other movies. But you watch the first half of the movie when the team's coming together and it's that just action and violence and war and their backstory. It's when the pharmaceutical company comes into it and when the movie falls apart. So it almost, to me, feels like they sat down and said, okay, here's what we've got planned out. And they wanted to go that role, but what you're describing is so much is a lot of interest, is really interesting that they didn't want to. They want to take up a whole movie for it, and they didn't want to cut it short by introducing the team, the backstory, getting into all of that, introducing the new person to their team, and how all that comes about. I think they kind of push that to the side to a second movie, so they have more time to tell that story the way they want to, versus cutting it short and for a better lack of word, half-assing it.
Yeah, but here's my beef with that, is that this is Netflix, right? Netflix has all kinds of formats that they put on their platform. You have the 10-episode series. You have, 6 or 7 episode documentaries. You have miniseries, you have short series where the episodes are maybe 20 minutes to half hour. And there was a lot of ways to go with this. They went with it was slightly more than an hour and a half. It was less than 2 hours. And they spent all their budget probably on Charlize Theron and the action sequences and the special effects, right? The healing effects. And they didn't go the route of investing in story. And I think they were looking at this film was probably filming at the same time Extraction was being put together. And they were probably investing a lot in these action heavy stories. But at the same time, you can still have interesting characters in action movies. And the action kind of drives the storytelling. I just think that the way that they could have gone was the more interesting way, and they left it on the table for a sequel. And I guarantee they're not going to crack open the idea of fate's worse than death, because they didn't do it this time.
Do you think this would have benefited better as a 10-episode series
versus
an hour and a half, 2-hour movie?
Yeah. So think about shows like The Haunting of Hill House, where there is a lot. I mean, it's a horror, but it's like psychological. They talk a lot about the kind of pain and suffering that these people are going through as they're dealing with these tragedies and these losses that they are experiencing in real life. And it's a mirror for the horror that they experience in this house. And so each episode is like a profile or a spotlight put on one character. Mm-hmm. And you have a handful of immortals, and you could spend one episode, 40 minutes to an hour spotlighting that particular person and tying it into the bigger theme of fate worse than death. and how it relates to the gal at the bottom of the ocean. And then at the midpoint of the season, the pharmaceutical company fishes her out of the ocean and cracks her open, and then all hell breaks loose. And then the rest of the season is using the bits and pieces from their histories, right? Not the stuff that we're seeing in present day, but the stuff from way back when, because they've been alive for centuries. And in Charlize Theron's case, millennia, that they can now pull out. I mean, what's the significance of this axe that she's been carrying around for as long as she's been alive, right? Why this axe? Why is it shaped that way? What does that mean? Why is it, it seemed like it should have more significance than it did in the first movie. And if they're waiting to show us the significance in the second movie, I think that's a mistake, because you may not get that chance.
Well, at this point, we do know they're going to get that chance, but you're right. Like during the making of the movie, they don't know how it's going to be received. It's a bit presumptuous, to think they're going to get a second chance, and they don't even know. Unless
Netflix said, look, you have a ridiculously low bar to hit to guarantee you a second movie,
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. I'm sure they said, look, Charlize Theron says, look, I'll do 2 movies, meet my pay demands, and I'll do 2 movies for you. We'll make it a series, which is fine. But I was really disappointed in that particular story choice. And I felt like there's certainly enough potential there. They definitely planted enough seeds to give you some really interesting story choices, and they chose not to go that route.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tyler.
I was just going to say, I see where you're coming from. And I agree. I think that is a much better story. And I was thinking the same thing when I was watching it. I want to know more about this chick at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
But the fact that they didn't do that didn't make it so that I couldn't enjoy the movie as it was. I did think that the pharmaceutical company was a generic story, but I really liked the characters. I thought that they developed them well. I thought the scenes were super cool. I thought the visuals were great, and maybe that's why it had to be a shorter movie, because a longer movie would have been, a bigger budget, and they could have added more elements and added, another character who was super in depth, like you're talking about. And maybe they could have done it with the time that they had, but maybe they just made that decision, like Matt said, where they wanted to make a full movie about it and not have to make a movie that's 2 hours or 2.5 hours long for the first movie. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. But and I was a little bit disappointed, but at the same time, it didn't make it so I couldn't enjoy the rest of the movie. I still thought that the rest of it was really fun to watch.
Do you guys think it would have been made a better movie if you find out maybe at the midway point or a little bit after that this woman that's been at the bottom of the ocean is actually the owner of the pharmaceutical company or working with the pharmaceutical company? Do you think that would have been a better movie?
Yeah, so
to find out who's involved.
Okay, so I think the most interesting story in any work of fiction is the worst case scenario, right? And so their idea is that she's at the bottom of the ocean, still waiting around for them to come fish her out. Now that's bad. But it's worse, it's way worse if she's not there. She made it out on her own, and she's out, and she's been plotting to get revenge on them this whole time. But I still don't think that's the worst case scenario. I think the worst case scenario is the pharmaceutical company fishes her out first, and then she's like, well, how did you even know I existed? And okay, so I was betrayed, and now I'm pissed. To me, that's the worst case scenario. And the portrayal of a pharmaceutical company as a villain, I mean, you got to do what you got to make some choice. It's got to be somebody who's sending the armed thugs after you. But my dad used to work for a pharmaceutical company, and if they wanted to do tests on someone out of the ordinary, they would have sent them a release form and asked for a blood sample, and that would have been the end of it.
How villainous.
But not all pharmaceutical companies are run by Dudley from Harry Potter.
So they have him strapped down, and I guess the idea is they're making this guy out to be the pharmaceutical bro who was like jacking up prices on everybody, and trying to turn him into the main villain. But I still think that was like the least compelling choice, because there's really no stakes. He has no personal relationship with these immortals. And once they put a bullet in his head, he's done. And then off they go. And so it's just way more compelling to have one of their own be the main villain.
Well, I agree.
Yeah. I think you're starting to sway me over, Sam. But here's the thing. I can still say that this was a better movie than The Last Days of the American Crime.
Oh, I didn't watch that movie.
Oh, good for you.
Sam's making good points, and even with this movie, like the selling point of this movie was the action scenes, but even those were poorly done. It felt like it was trying to be like a John Wick clone. And when you're getting those action scenes, like the best action scene I think in the movie is the fight between the two characters in the plane. Yeah. And when you're getting the action scenes, you want shots that are up close, so you see those hits connecting, and you see those power shots connecting. And most of these action shots were from far away; they were from shaky cam. Like it just, I just felt like even the action scenes weren't as well done as they could have been.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So let's talk about the action too. Since we're bringing up John Wick, so in John Wick, every time Keanu pulls the trigger, he is invested in that gunshot. Charlize Theron, every time she swings a sword or an axe or fires a gun, she looks completely bored, completely uninterested in the result. And that was so frustrating for me from a storytelling standpoint, right? John Wick is a man on a mission. He kills these people because he must. Charlize Theron, she kills these people because she's got nothing better to do.
She kills them in one punch. No. Consecutive normal punches. No, I didn't have the same feeling as you guys. I enjoyed watching the action scenes in it.
Yeah,
I didn't pick them apart as much as you guys, I guess, but
the first scene in the warehouse when they go on this killing spree and killing all these people, like I was hooked, man. I love the action sequences,
that was a great setup, and like we were saying on our group text, I thought that was a great scene, a great way to set up the immortality and the fact that they, death really has no meaning to them. And that was a great way to show it.
Yeah.
But it never got better than that. They showed some really interesting story choices that they could have made. And they said, but that's not the story you're going to get. You're going to get this other one where Charlize just really doesn't care. Like, she's like, like when the girl escapes, right, from the back of the Humvee, and she like jumps out and she's like, it's like so annoyed that she's still doing this. I was like, okay, well, me too. I feel it too. Like, why are we doing this?
Okay, but I think that has a specific point in it to where she's just like wants to, she's been through this with all the other ones, and she's just kind of like, all right, let's get through this initial phase already type thing, so I felt like that was more appropriate at that point, that attitude. But
dude, okay, so let me ask you guys this question. If you were suddenly aware of the fact that you were never going to die, what would you do with the rest of your immortality?
I would honestly probably do crazy, outlandish stuff to make tons of money. Just
like
be I'm
skydive
gonna
out of a plane without a parachute.
I bet you, you know, $12,000 that I can jump out of this plane without a parachute and live. You're on, you know? Cool, let's do it. You know, yeah, it's gonna suck that you still feel pain, but at the end of the day, you're not dead, so
Yeah, like so we were talking earlier about the idea of what would happen if they got their heads cut off, right? What would happen if they jump out of a plane from that high and they turn into a puddle?
Okay. So remember, this is the opposite question of what would you do if you found out that today was your last day on Earth?
Yeah,
This is the opposite of that. What would you do if you found out that you were going to outlive the Earth? Like immortal. Like we're just barely scratching the surface.
video game is pretty much the same thing I'm doing now.
I don't know, man.
Like when you're immortal, you'll never die, right? Never, ever, ever. And 1,000 years, 10,000 years, that's still just a small fraction of your existence. So what are you really going to do with all that time?
I get up my own reality show and start doing like,
yeah, sure. That's going to be fun for the first 50, 100 years, but after that,
but once you make enough to buy your own private island, then just go live on an island somewhere.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that I was really hoping they would explore. Like what do you do? I mean, all these people did, this team of immortals, all they did was continue being who they were in their original lifetime, right? Is we don't know what else to do, so we're just going to keep killing people. I mean, that part seems at least believable to me. Is that?
I mean, how would you change it? Because I mean, we've seen this trope before in this movie and Wolverine, where it seems like everyone who's immortal and lives hundreds and thousands of years, eventually, whenever you meet them, they're bored. They're ready to die. They're ready for their life to end. They've had enough. Like it just seems like they're begging for death and the thing that's not coming.
No, so, man. And the thing was I was just trying to get you to think about it rather than make any change. Because I agree, it's the opposite of what would you do if you found out this was your last day. If this was your last day and time was running out, you're like, well, I better do everything that I never thought I was going to be able to do. But if you had all the time in the world, I mean, you had more time than the world, take your time.
I think you would have the perpetual.
There's no pressure
tomorrow.
That was
there's
kind
no
of
pressure to change.
My question is like, as the movie mechanic, so you're writing that movie and you want to change that trope of that person wanting to die. What would you do to change that?
So that's why I keep talking about the fate worse than death. How do you change someone's existence from no pressure to end it now, right? Please just give me the sweet release of death. And the gal who's at the bottom of the ocean is a good example of that. She's essentially suffering in hell, right? Because she doesn't know when it's going to end. She's just going to continually suffer. And for the first year, she's like, okay, maybe I can get out of this. Maybe they're coming for me. Then a decade passes, 100 years. At what point does time start to lose its meaning? At what point does she wake up and say, it's just not today. Today is not going to happen. You know, it's kind of like the Groundhog Day, right? Where you just keep living the same moment over and over and over again. At what point do you just give up? At what point after you've given up, do you get invested again? You know, where do the layers come in? And why weren't we exploring that? 'Cause it's so fascinating to me.
Well, Palm Springs does a really good job of exploring that. I don't know if you guys have seen Palm Springs on Hulu, but Andy Samberg's basically, it's a Groundhog Day for adults, I guess you could say. Andy Samberg's basically living the same day over and over again on this resort. And he's doing all these crazy things like planting bombs inside of wedding cakes and coming in and saying, there's a bomb in the wedding cake, you know, like just stupid stuff, being like a typical child, I guess. And he doesn't start to get invested until somebody else joins his little nightmare of reliving
to entertain himself.
Yeah, essentially, like every day was, how many people can I sleep with? You know, how many drinks can I drink? How many lives can I disrupt that are never going to remember this again? You know what I mean? Like, that was him. He was basically a prankster for every day that he was reliving. And it wasn't until somebody else came into the picture that he started to change a little bit. If you guys haven't seen that movie, I know Matt has, but if Sam and Tyler, if you haven't seen that movie, you really need to watch it. It's very good.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's got Andy Samberg in it. Okay.
So, in addition to Kumail Nanjiani, Tyler has a man crush over Andy Samberg.
Okay, have I not said on the show like a million times?
No, you do.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine is my favorite show.
I'm just reminding people that there's a bit of an unhealthy man crush when it comes to Andy Samberg.
I mean,
Healthy, unhealthy. It is what it is.
No more unhealthy than your obsession with Supernatural. I mean, don't throw the guy under the bus that hard.
Hey, I didn't give Stuber 5 stars and call it the next Citizen Kane.
Well, we all make mistakes. I mean, I gave Captain Marvel a 9.8 coming out of the theater, so we all make mistakes.
Yeah, I remember. No, I really enjoyed the Old Guard, but I guess when I'm watching those action movies, I'm not looking for a how do you say it? Like so much of like like an experience like that, like a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm just looking for a cheap popcorn flick, right? That's why John Wick is so good, because the premise of John Wick in the first movie is kind of dumb, you know? But it's
simple, but I wouldn't say it's dumb.
He goes on it's for a dog, essentially. Like, it's
and his wife.
Yeah, but his wife wasn't killed by these people. Like, that's not the reason for his. I guess it's because the dog was a gift from his wife, I guess.
Right.
But
it was the last part of his wife he had.
Right,
so that's
but like
what it was. Yeah,
I mean, but it's kind of it's.
And the second one's about his car, so you know.
It's just kind of simple, you know what I mean? Like, it's not anything that's going to be this deep intellectual, you know, dive, you know, but it's just a fun. He goes on this killing spree essentially, and he's this famous assassin or mercenary or whatever the hell he is. But it's a fun movie. The same can be said for the Fast and Furious movies. There's not much thought that goes into them besides let's try to make cool scenes.
Those movies are a work of art. The Fast and Furious movies are a work of art.
But that's why I go see these movies, you know. Like, I love, you know.
There's no point in John Wick where you look at his motivations and you think these are cheap, or these are easy. The storytelling is done a lot through the action in John Wick, but he, like I was saying, he is invested in every single bullet. He's invested in every single punch. And you can have popcorn flicks, but you can also have movies that are transformative. And I feel like there was an opportunity, right? I keep harping on this, but they had an opportunity to do something really, really fascinating. And in my mind, the movie that plays out, if they do go after the Quinn at the bottom of the ocean, is far more interesting.
You know how many people I would kill if somebody came and killed this guy? I'd kill everyone.
Was Quinn the woman, or was Quinn the boy or the guy that died? Because I'm getting confused.
Quinn was the woman at the bottom of the ocean. And it was spelled Quynh.
So who was they didn't delve into that other guy that passed away that was immortal and eventually died from his wounds. They didn't talk about him that much either.
No, they didn't. And it was just to say, look, we're not really immortal. We're just kind of immortal.
Yeah.
And that was really frustrating to me too, because there are no stakes for immortal people as far as death is concerned or violence is concerned, because it has no effect on them. And yet they kept trying to bring that back in as if death is the only bad thing that could happen to them. And they had other ways to go about it. And to me, it was just like a cheap excuse, because well, how does it work? Why is it only warriors become immortal? And why is it that these particular warriors became immortal? And then what is it about, how many times does it take for them to not become immortal? And those are choices and explanations that they decided to just say, you know what, just fate, just
what
happens.
Goes into them not being immortal anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, it kind of felt like a cheap, out. Because they were like, well, what are the stakes here? What are the stakes if these people are mortal? We got to have some sort of stakes for them. Okay, so the stakes are going to be that they don't know when, but at some point, they're going to lose their immortality to where they can get hurt and die. They won't recover anymore. And the guy's like, genius. It felt like just a cheap out. It kind of felt like, well, we need to adapt this property that we've got into this movie as quick as possible. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. They're immortal. So how do they die? Well, let's just say that eventually they do. And like Logan, right? He eventually runs out of steam.
Well, Logan is essentially being poisoned his whole life, right? From the adamantium.
Well, it's not only that, Lance, but we've seen Wolverine. He was in like 7 or 8 or 9 movies that we've seen. And so when he finally runs out of gas, we're like, okay, it makes sense. But we just started with these people, and they're already trying to give us a Logan moment. And it's like,
it's not earned.
That's not earned. They're either immortal or they aren't. And if they aren't, tell us the rules, like in Highlander, right? That's what Tyler's getting at. If they die because their heads get chopped off, then tell us the rules so we know what to worry about. So we know what the stakes are. But they're just like, sometimes the gas runs out and then it's over. And we don't know when it's going to hit, but guess what? And it's going to hit in the next 90 minutes.
Well, and I was shocked too that she, they go through this whole, because when she starts losing her immortality or whatever, I was like, oh, she's going to die at the end of this movie. And the focus is going to be on the new girl that came in, right? Because they kind of seemed like they were trying to set the new girl up as the future of the franchise to a point, right? Nile, I think her name is, right? Is it Nile?
Yeah, Nile.
Yeah. So I kept thinking, oh, she's the future, right? It's eventually she's going to be the one that takes on the mantle of this crew. And so I thought Charlize Theron was going to die at the end of the movie. And when she doesn't, it felt a bit cheap, because then at the end of the movie, the guy that kind of set them up in the beginning turns into like they're basically what's the dude from Charlie's Angels? The guy that gives them
Bosley.
He turns into their Bosley, essentially. And Charlize Theron's going to keep going on these like hunts, even though she can die easily now. Like
he's not their Bosley. He's in timeout for 100 years.
No, not Booker. Booker is in timeout.
Oh, you're talking about the CIA contact who
the guy
betrayed
that
them
at the beginning.
Yeah, Copley.
Yeah, at the end he turns into Bosley essentially, and he has to find their jobs and find people that need help, and he has to get this team out, right? That was like essentially his punishment. But it just seemed kind of like this guy betrayed him. Like, why would they think that they could trust him? You muted yourself. Why would they think they could trust him? I was
yelling at my wife.
Oh. I thought you were having like a eureka moment. That's what your face looked like. But didn't that seem? I felt like that was kind of cheap. Like I was like, well, now Charlize Theron's gonna be the leader of this group just because she's Charlize Theron.
Pretty much, you're paying for the name. You're gonna kill off the character, the person that's driving this franchise.
But she wasn't even the most. She wasn't even the most like interesting character. Like I thought Booker and Nile were far more interesting than Charlize Theron. Like Booker had this.
But Charlize Theron, she's the original old guard. She's the number one. She's the very first.
Yeah.
So she's gonna remain in command because she's the number one.
But she's not an old guard anymore. I guess you could say like she doesn't have that immortality.
Yeah, but she's the only one who had a relationship with Quinn.
Oh yeah, so you got to kind of explore that a little bit, which is what the first movie should have been. I agree with Sam completely.
Yeah, and before it happens, in the second movie, she's going to have her regeneration back all the way.
Right. They're gonna explore that more as to why they have it, I think, and they're going to go after it.
I thought it was explained that when somebody new comes around, somebody else loses theirs.
No, they never said that.
Oh, see, I kind of understood it as like as soon as Niall comes in, Charlize Theron loses hers because now there's a new person.
Well,
there can be only half a dozen.
See, I kind of took it like you lose your regeneration when your job is done, your time is up. Like you've done what you were put there to do, and now it's time to go. But then as the movie goes on, you're like, that's not the case at all. Like that doesn't work here.
Well, and then I kind of understood it too. Like you can only die so many times, right? Like because they said something that kind of alluded to that midway through the movie. That when they're talking about how in the beginning your regeneration is very slow, right? And you only get they kind of alluded to the fact that you only get so many of these regenerations, right? But then they introduce the woman that's in the ocean, and I'm like, wait, she's been dying over and over again for 500 years. Wouldn't it have run out by now?
I think it was more like muscle memory type or building muscle. When you start working out, it's slow going. You're hurting, it takes your body longer to regenerate versus the more you get into shape, the less recovery time it takes. And that's kind of what it is. So like the first time you regenerate, it's going to be slow, but the more you do it, the faster it gets.
Yeah, but that's just getting old, right? And that is the antithesis of what immortal means, right? They're not immortal. They just live a really long time. And it kind of it just really bothers me that you have this really great setup and it could be really cool, but you have to change the terms, right? It has to be something that the stakes have to be something other than they're going to die.
Yeah.
It has to be something else because like in Logan, right? He's kind of the same character. And when he finally dies, he's like, yeah, finally, this is great. He's kind of like, now I don't have to work out anymore.
Well, and he kind of dies for somebody else, right? Like he dies for X-23. What's her name in the movie? I don't remember her name, but that was kind of rewarding too because he's kind of
Laura Kenny.
Yeah. So he
Or
kind of his whole life he's kind of selfish, right? That's kind of how Wolverine is set up in these movies, right? He kind of like is about himself and how it helps him, kind of, unless it has to do with Jean Grey. But in this last movie, what I liked about Logan so much is that he dies helping somebody else, and it makes his death that much more impactful, I guess.
Yeah, but absolutely. No, I agree with you.
But you're right. There's like nothing. Like there was one moment in the movie, and they don't talk about it till the end, about how this group, basically they save these people, and because they saved this certain person, it's like the butterfly effect, right? They saved this certain person, Amelia Earhart was able to fly or whatever. Like all these, or there was something with Martin Luther King and all this other stuff.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's like Guardian Angels, that's really cool.
They don't talk about it at all.
But yeah, they don't spend a whole lot of time on that. That was another interesting concept that just gets kind of lip service at the end. Let's talk about some of the choices they made or didn't make. Could they have stopped Hitler, for example, from killing a bunch of people? Could they have stopped other tragic figures? But they made a choice that went a different way. So if they're responsible for all these good things, what's the responsibility for all the bad things? Are they basically God's hand in crafting history? There's a lot of different ways you could have gone with the idea of immortality, and it just boiled down to another essentially Rambo type movie where you've got these old guys kicking around, killing a bunch of kids, and maybe they'll die, maybe they won't, probably won't.
Expendables 5.
Expendables Infinity.
Running around killing some kids, maybe they die, maybe they won't edition.
All right. Well,
and at the end of it, Arnold just gets gunned down and he sits up and I'll be back. Boom, credits. Expendables 6. Still kicking.
Are you guys interested in seeing another addition to this? Like, Sam, would you give it another shot now that you know that that's where the second movie is going to go?
So the hope that I have is that they make the movie they should have made for this one,
right?
Which is, they devote themselves to saving Quinn. In the end, she's saved by somebody else. Right as they're about to get her, she's saved by somebody else. They're there when she gets cracked open so they can see whatever she's feeling firsthand. They need to experience that firsthand. And then they see her do unspeakable things in her quest to make them suffer as she suffered, but not because of vengeance. But I think it would be really interesting if she is trying to get them to pursue some sort of path to enlightenment that she found right at the bottom of the ocean. I found enlightenment, and you need to suffer as I have suffered so that you can find the same enlightenment. And that's a really like twisted kind of religious motivation that I think would be really compelling.
So you want her to come back and like go full on like cult leader status?
Yeah, but at the same time, like it'd be real for them, because it's like, yeah, your brain has, or your soul, or your mind has all of this potential locked in it, but you have to suffer in hell, like I suffered in hell, in order to unlock it, and then you'll be as I am. And then she starts firing off all these like godlike powers or angelic like powers, whatever you want to call it, demonic powers, and just destroying all kinds of stuff to make them suffer so that they can basically be butterflies, right? So they can become what they're meant to become. I would like to see something like that.
So you want to see it basically to go more towards, so to go back to your fate worse than death, where she's basically essentially torturing them to give them a fate worse than death to reach that level of enlightenment that she's at.
Yeah, and the reason why I want it to be like a level of enlightenment is because she's experiencing something that she thinks is beautiful, and then she wants to share it with them. But in order to do it, she has to be the villain for them. And so it's this really kind of layered, complex person or character, and her motivations to do these unspeakable things are really complex, and there's a lot to explore. So that's why I would make those specific choices.
She comes back thinking she's the good guy.
Thinking not only that she's a good guy, but that she's like God.
Yeah.
And that whatever suffering she's imposing on them is for their own good.
Yeah.
She wants them to experience the same thing because she thinks it's a level of enlightenment.
Right? That's what church tells us, right? You go to church, and when you suffer or you go through trials, it's all God's plan.
Yeah.
And when you get to the other side of it, you'll be much better, right? That's what church tells you, and that's what she's doing, right? She's behaving like God to put them through these trials so that when they come out the other side, they'll be enlightened,
stronger.
They'll be more godlike.
I hope I hope they're all there when they crack her out, and she just steps out and she's like, "Cool prank, bros," and then like the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme plays and the credits roll. Yep, that's it. That's movie 2 right there.
That's kind of like Luke Skywalker just tossing his lightsaber when Rey hands it to him.
Well, let's give our ratings. I guess Sam has been the most vocal about this movie, so let's start with him. Sam, what's your rating on this flick?
Yeah, I think this is the least interesting version of this movie that they could have gone with, so I gave it a 2. 2 out of 5.
Tyler?
I really enjoyed it. I thought that they did a good job with the visuals. I enjoyed obviously the plot could have been better, which we've talked about, but I still thought that the character development was great. I liked the relationships between everybody, and I enjoyed the action in it. I thought it was really good. So I'll give it a 4. 4 out of 5.
Oh, high praise. Matt, what about you?
2.5.
Did Sam change your rating at all?
No. I mean, he made valid points, but it's a 2.5 out of 5 for me.
So Sam convinced me a little bit. So I think coming in here, I probably would have given it a 4 because I really enjoyed it. Now Sam's kind of spoiled it a little bit.
Sam just nails that for me because I had my own different issues with the movie to why I give it a 2.5. But I mean, I see exactly what he's throwing out. I'm stepping in what he's dropping as far as his take on this movie.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So I think that Sam, now don't pat yourself too much on the back, buddy, or you might fall over. But I think Sam, he gave me enough reason to give it a 3 out of 5 rather than the 4 I was initially going to give it. So the movie mechanic strikes again. We're gonna make his own theme song.
Appeal, one movie at a time. No, no.
It's gonna go da ruining movies.
No, I'm with you too, Sam. I like, and you've been very passionate about your feelings on this movie, but I'm with you on it. It just didn't ruin it for me the way it did for you, that they didn't go that way. So,
well, when I watch a movie, I'm really hoping to see something new. I think that's like the minimum threshold for any movie. And a lot of this movie was just rehashing ground what we've seen in the last 10 years. I didn't really see anything new, and that's why I was really disappointed.
It's fair. It's fair.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if you guys know this, but did you guys know today was National Spider-Man Day?
I did.
Yes.
That's why I'm wearing this shirt. I did have on a different Spider-Man shirt, but walking around the mall today got it all sweaty and gross. So now I'm wearing this shirt. But I wanted to look real quick. So I was like, how do we kind of do something to make Spider-Man special? Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel character of all time. It's one of the comics I remember reading most as a kid. And I wanted to look. I looked up a list on Ranker, and there's so many lists for Spider-Man on Ranker, but one that kind of caught my eye was the all-time lamest Spider-Man villains. And I wanted to go through a couple of these names and see how many of these you guys might remember. Okay.
Cardiac.
So Spider-Man and Batman have a lot in common as far as
Cardiac.
Cardiac. That's
Wait,
funny.
where's his name?
Spider-Man and Batman have a lot of in common.
The Fury of Cardiac.
As far as having ridiculous villains from their rogues gallery. Wouldn't you say, Matt?
Yes.
Batman has some ridiculous ones too. But some of these kind of made me laugh a little bit. So the number one most ludicrous villain from Spider-Man's rogue gallery is Typeface.
I disagree with that. That's number 2. Leapfrog, I think, is number 1.
Is that this one, Frogman?
Yeah.
He says, "Hiya, Spidey."
Yeah.
This doesn't even look like a bag. I don't remember this guy at all. Frogman.
Yeah.
But hiya, Spidey, hiya is what it says here.
It's like your weird uncle.
Yeah, right? Like he's had a few too many peppermint schnapps.
Yeah, your mom hired me to be the frogman at your birthday party, so hiya.
Do you guys remember Hypno Hustler?
Oh my gosh.
I don't remember half of these. I remember Frogman, but I don't remember. Here's Walrus.
There's a lot of animal-themed villains in Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well,
Big
they were
wheel.
like, hey, he's a arachnid man, right? Spider-Man. So how many other things can we add man to the end of, right? So Walrus Man, Frog Man. It was all the Batman craze.
Whoa, go back up to that unholy union of Pat Sajak and the wheel.
Big Wheel. I don't remember this one either.
The wheel of chance the wheel of fortune turned villain.
Is there a dude sitting here? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, he hit the bankrupt one too many times, and he became one with the wheel.
So basically, oh wow, that's interesting. Mind
Cardiac didn't make the list. Oh,
he's probably on here somewhere. Paste
Kangaroo Man. Yeah, Kangaroo Man.
But yeah, I don't see Cardiac on here.
White Rabbit.
They have a Marvel Legends made of this character.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to basically hear from. So go on our Facebook. I'm going to post something on our Facebook in recognition of Spider-Man Day, posting this list. I'd like to hear from our listeners and from our Facebook group what they think their most ridiculous Spider-Man character of all time that they've ever encountered. And we'll be posting that today. But I just there wasn't a whole lot to do as far as Spider-Man is concerned that would be fun, especially since I only learned it was Spider-Man Day about 4 hours ago. Thanks to Drawn to Comics for posting that online.
Shout out.
Yeah. There was a couple things from, let me stop sharing my screen here. There was a couple things from the news that I wanted to ask you guys about. So did you guys see that Tenet is going to be released everywhere else but here in a couple weeks? How do you guys, if coronavirus is running rampant pretty much everywhere, does it make sense for the studio to release it everywhere else before the US with that much time in between the two?
I don't understand why the release has anything to do with COVID. Like,
well, because they're not releasing it
because the theaters are all closed.
Oh, I didn't realize other places had theaters open, I guess.
Christopher Nolan does not want this to be released to digital or to streaming before it's released in IMAX. And he's sticking to his guns.
So why don't they just release it everywhere at the same time? Because all that's going to happen, it's going to be released internationally, and then it's going to show up on the Pirate Bay or something.
It's going to be the most pirated movie, hands down. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's still going to be an event to see. And you may have to see it 2 or 3 times on Pirates Bay before you get to see it in the theaters just to understand it. That's what I hear. Like it said it makes Interstellar look like Schoolhouse Rock.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't completely get Interstellar, so I'm gone for this movie, dude. Yeah. It's never going to make sense to me.
It said Tenet is a long movie and it's very complex. And they said it makes Interstellar look very simple by comparison.
You know what that says to me in layman's terms? Boring AF.
Yeah, it could be. It could be really boring. If it's really confusing or really complex, it could be really boring. It looks to me like a 4D movie where they can fast forward and rewind at will. Right? If a 3D movie is what you're watching on a screen because you have 2 dimensions plus time, 4D would be 3D plus time. So he's just rewinding and fast forwarding. That's what it looks like to me.
This movie feels to me like it's going to be one of those movies where you get the ending at the beginning and then the whole movie is like the reverse of, from that point back to the beginning. So the end of the movie is actually going to be the beginning. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So basically it's like that scene in Spaceballs where they're watching themselves on the TV screen, like as it's happening, like that kind of time.
Yeah.
There was an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where they had time and anti-time, and to me, that's what this looks like. It looks like you have 2 different things going on at the same time. One of them is moving forward in time, and that's the two main characters are moving forward, and then the rest of the movie is moving backwards. So I think it's going like this at the same time. And that's Christopher Nolan. Like all the original Christopher Nolan movies all play with concepts of time. Memento is a movie that's backwards. The Prestige had like 4 different timelines running back and forth. You had Inception, where they had 4 different timelines all running at the same time, but they're running at different rates. Dunkirk, where you had different time frames. It was like a week, a day, an hour, and then they all converged at the same moment. And then you had Interstellar, where it's like the effect of gravity on time and kind of 4-dimensional space time and what that would look like. So like all of his movies that aren't part of the Dark Knight trilogy play with the concept of time.
So another question I have for you: how much LSD do you think Christopher Nolan does on a regular basis?
A lot.
I don't know, but I think he definitely is like stuck on this one concept, and I don't think I think all of his movies are going to be exploring that concept until he feels like he's done it, and I don't think he's going to get to the end of it.
What if he's secretly a time traveler stuck here in our, and he's just going through the years and he's trying to give the secrets of time travel through his movies, and nobody's just uncovered it yet.
And everyone's like, "Wow, that's cool, man. That's so cool." Yeah. He's like, "You're not getting it."
Right? He's getting it. No one's picking this up.
I was like, "Okay, from the top."
I was laughing because Tyler's dog walked into the room, looked at Tyler, and said, "Nope," and walked right out. Like he looked at you and said, "I don't want any part of this," and walked right out. Dude. Oh, made me laugh a little bit. I lost track of what you guys were talking about, time or something.
We were talking about the particular shine off your forehead tonight. It looks so beautiful.
You can't ever touch it. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think he's a time traveler. He's trying to teach us all the ways of time travel, and we're just not getting
Be excellent to each other.
Dude, so that one's being released on video on demand. I think we talked about it last week briefly, right, Tyler? But Bill and Ted's release date, what did they say it was going to be? September something?
Yeah, it's getting a dual release, so it's going to do time in select theaters, but it is going to be VOD at the same time.
Speaking of that, did you see AMC and Universal reached a contract to shorten the
17
time?
days.
17 days. Am I freezing a little bit?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. 17 days now.
Just now that Sam has pointed out the shine, I can't take my eyes off of anything else.
It just kind of follows like. Yeah, I'll just do it like this for the rest of the night.
Face the Music is September 1st.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that because I was kind of bummed because that was one of the movies I was looking most forward to, just because I'm a huge Bill and Ted fan in general. But I thought that was another one we were going to have to wait till next year because everything's just been pushed and pushed and pushed. And like Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I'm super bummed about. But I'm kind of stoked that that's one of the bigger name movies that are coming out this year. I would say that's one of the biggest movies that's going to be video on demand that's so far, right?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate, I'd say.
Yeah. But yeah, so the Universal AMC new contract is releasing the theater window to just 17 days. So someone had told me when this whole VOD thing started back in March or April, or whatever it was, with the release of, I would say it's Invisible Man was the first one, right? That kind of did that, like straight to rental.
Well, they all kind of that whole selection of movies like that. What was it? The Ben Affleck basketball one,
The Way Back.
Trolls 2.
Trolls 2.
Well, I saw The Way Back in theaters. I saw The Way Back, and so it was in theaters for a short while, and then it got released.
I think the last movie I saw in theaters. Last movie I saw in theaters was either Sonic or Onward. I don't remember which one came out first, but one of those was the last one.
Bad Boys 2 was the last movie I saw in theaters.
Dude, I miss it so much.
Or no, Bad Boys 3, I mean. Bad Boys 3, sorry.
Yeah, I think The Way Back was the last one I saw. I miss the movies terribly, dude. My wife and I were driving around today looking for stuff to do. We got a babysitter and just kind of went out on a day date. And normally our go-to is let's go to the movies. Like we'll even go to the movies to watch something we've already seen, right? Just to go to the movies because we love it so much. And so instead we just walked around the mall like mindless idiots.
Do you remember what was that? Was it Movie Pass? What was that one?
Movie Pass.
Movie Pass, right? Where you got to see unlimited movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they were just ahead of the game when they went out of business. That's
a
sad thought.
AMC does their own kind of Movie Pass thing now. That's awesome.
Have you seen the drawings of what they're calling the Theater of the Future? And it looks like the Galactic Senate from Star Wars. So it's just a bunch of like pods that you like walk into, like you're in balcony seats at a Broadway show. It's gonna be like a bunch of little pods you go into and sit and watch.
Oh man! And then you're just all sitting around a TV screen, or what? Like,
well, so it'll be just like the normal movie screen, but then so it's just like little pods on the wall and stuff. It's
a hemisphere. It's like a half sphere, or
I'm looking for one right now. I don't know.
To find the link where I saw it, but I can send it to you. But it looked just like the Galactic Senate almost, where you're just like in pods up the wall. So
man, that's kind of like Esplanade, AMC Esplanade, where they feed you, and then you're sitting in the dark eating, and then when the lights come up, you realize all the food is all over your shirt.
Just a big old pile of ketchup and mustard is on the middle of your shirt.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
That looks ridiculous. This looks like that ride at Disneyland that lifts you up and you start going through the orange groves and stuff like that. What is that called?
Your mom's house.
You're sitting. You know what I'm talking about? It's like Sky High at Disneyland or California Adventure. I don't remember what it's called.
I prefer your mom's house.
But this doesn't look fun at all.
You know what? Actually, it looks like a lot of fun, but it also looks really expensive.
Wow. Well, this is what I hate about the IMAX is that you're basically like sitting straight up like that, right? So like there's a super deep incline when it comes to the seats. Then that looks kind of similar.
I think this looks really awesome, but it's like very highbrow. I feel like because they're not maximizing the use of the space, the ticket sales or the ticket prices go through the roof.
Yeah.
Or they just make massive screens.
Yeah, this is the first class area of the theater, and then there's going to be a coach area where the seats are all stacked on top of each other.
I don't know. With what being one of the states that have been re-shut down, do we really think that? Do you guys really open movie theaters back up? It's really going to change that much? I think people are going to go back exactly the way they were doing it before.
I don't think that's going to be the case for a long time. At least not in the way that we were doing. Harkins, for example, they're saying that they're going to have mask requirements and perhaps some spacing in their seats. So, I mean, that's pretty much the same thing, but they're just trying to incorporate social distancing and mask requirements. I think the theater of the future is meant to not to make it a sterile experience, but to maximize the movie experience itself by kind of making it it looks to me like a hybrid of a living room and a theater and also like a restaurant. So I think that particular concept is meant to heighten the audience experience, but it also looks really expensive to me. Theaters for everyday folks, I think they're probably going to look a lot the same, but just be able to sell a lot fewer tickets.
Right now, like my favorite movie experience is Dolby Cinema. Like, I think that's like premier, the best screen. Like IMAX to me is overrated, but Dolby Cinema, like I think they could do something like this and just make it to where it feels like I'm sitting in my living room, and I think I'd sign up for that.
Now for me, like the most enjoyable movie experience is sitting next to my wife, and it feels like just the two of us are in the theater.
Yeah.
We usually sit in a way that we don't interact with anybody else. It's just us in the movie. If I can't have that, I would rather just see the movie by myself. Because then I don't have to deal with, Joe Blow's expectations or spoilers that he may be spouting to his friends. It's just me in the movie, or me and my wife in the movie. And I think the closer, the more life goes on, or the more theater goes on, we realize that that's really the height of a theater experience is fewer people. It's just more movie, more you. And I think that's why I'm looking at that Galactic Senate, and I'm like, hey, that's actually not too bad. That actually looks pretty appealing.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad at all. But someone's trying to get in my office. But
call the cops.
Can your pop out and like go in front of the screen?
That'd be kind of cool. Like they were kind of drifting. Like as one of the coolest experiences I ever had was doing in Colorado. They had these seats called D-box seats, which is essentially you're sitting in a chair. We went and saw John Wick 3. You're sitting in a chair that essentially vibrates and moves with the movie. So in John Wick 3, there's a scene where he's on a motorcycle, right? And he's kind of going through the city and he's running away from these other people. And your chair is kind of like drifting along with his motorcycle, right? And that'd be kind of cool if this little, pod thing kind of did the same thing, like was kind of like a interactive in a sense.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot fewer people who are going to want that though, because it's going to give people motion sickness and stuff like that.
Well, that's what was nice about D-Box is you could shut it off.
Just give me my portable tent and let me go back to the movies. That's all I need. Just my little personal tent that I can put on and sit there in my movie and watch the movie, and we're good to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my fear too. If they start putting space in between each seat or whatever, does that mean when my wife and I go to the movies that we're not going to be able to sit next to each other?
No, I think you can sit next to the people that you come with, but you're supposed to have distance in between other people.
So what if I go to the movies with like 10 of my closest friends? They're not going to let us sit together because we're a group of...
No.
I think it's going to be every other seat. You're going to sell every other seat, so you're going to have to,
That's ridiculous.
You can all be in the same row, but you're not going to be able to touch each other like that.
Yeah. They got to do what they got to do, Lance. Like, it's not like they asked for this situation. It's not like they want to sell half the tickets they could.
Yeah. I don't know. I remember one of the best experiences I had was going to see the last Harry Potter with like 30 of my friends and us all at the Cine Capri, I think it was. All of us just huddled together, like waiting for the last Harry Potter to play. And I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be back to the normal for a while, dude.
See, someone from me, like me, I enjoy that because I hate it when you're the one person and you go to a movie by yourself and that like a matinee and that theater's empty and one other guy walks in and for some reason he's got to sit right next to you. A whole theater and he's got to sit right next to you. It's like,
Lance.
Come on, man.
No,
Lance is that guy.
No,
Lance
you know
is the
what
guy
I do?
sitting on Matt's lap.
I always it drives Max nuts because I always like to show up early to the movies. But this was kind of before where you could like select your seats and stuff. But I would always show up early to the movies, and then if I was by myself, I would take my popcorn bucket and like my jacket or something and make it look like people were sitting next to me, like people that I came with, and then nobody.
You just fart. You should have just been farting the whole time.
Yeah, that's true too.
As soon as I come up, just go. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe
it's not a big deal. Sit down. I'm not saving these seats. Go ahead, sit down.
I'll get a shirt that says, "Don't sit next to me. I have IBS."
No, you should get a shirt that says, "It's fine. Just ask me about my IBS." Or it should say, "Don't worry about the smell. It's just farts."
Well, I think. Oh, there was one other thing I want to talk to you guys. So it looks like Haley Steinfeld is back as Hawkeye's daughter.
Hey.
So she was on for a while, and then it seemed like stuff kind of fell through, and now she's back. It reported that she signed.
I thought she wasn't his daughter. She was his.
She's
Yeah,
Kate.
it's not his daughter yet.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. It's Kate. It's Kate. She's Kate Bishop, so she's the new Hawkeye or whatever. But this got me excited. Matt, are you on with this?
I mean, I've been on with it since the beginning. I think she's a good choice. I think she's going to do a good job. I like her as an actress. The question is now when. It's cool that you're getting the news, but when are you going to see it?
Yeah, because technically we were supposed to be getting Falcon and Winter Soldier this month, right?
Yeah, and that got pushed.
And then WandaVision October.
Last I saw, WandaVision is staying put. That has not been pushed. It's only been Falcon Winter Soldier that's been pushed. WandaVision and Mandalorian are staying put.
So is it October WandaVision?
Yeah.
And Mandalorian when?
November.
Or
is it the other? Or is it? I can't remember.
WandaVision's showing is.
I think it might be Switch. Okay, then December. Then I think Mandalorian is October.
Well, it came out October last year, I think.
I think Mandalorian was October.
Yeah, that would make sense because what is it, like 13 episodes, and it ended right around Christmas?
Yeah, it ended
November
the same
12th
week.
is when it came out.
The final episode came out the same week. Came out after Skywalker, didn't it?
Yeah, and Skywalker came out around Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they had like 2 more episodes or 1 more episode after that movie came out.
Oh, no,
I don't know.
No, you're right. Because so they aired an episode on Monday before Rise of Skywalker, and then it ended on Friday. I think the same Skywalker came out, or the next week after that, or something like that.
Yeah, they had a sneak peek of the movie, I remember.
Yeah.
But dude, I'm totally on board with Haley Steinfeld. I think she's a fantastic actress. I mean, she's one of the few I don't know, like young actresses, like teenage. She's not really a teenager. I think she's like 21 or something. But she got her start like in True Grit and stuff, right?
She's
I didn't really put out really good stuff.
Yeah, she was really good in True Grit. I didn't really like it, but the movie as a whole. But she did an awesome job.
True Grit is a fantastic movie. You hold your tongue.
I didn't really
One of my favorite movies ever.
She's 23.
23. But she also did The Edge of 17, which is a fantastic movie. Bumblebee is the best installment of the Transformers franchise, in my opinion.
All right. Hang on. But Lance, what about her music career?
She actually has a song that I like.
Is it the one about loving myself?
I don't remember.
Is that the one? She has a song, and I swear it's about masturbation.
As most songs are.
Let me see if I can find the lyrics for you. But just something like, "Hey, I'm gonna love myself. I don't need anybody else."
Yeah, I know. Wasn't that song? Her song was in one of the.
That's the Flashlight.
It was in one of the. Well, she has that, but it was also part of one of the Pitch Perfect movies.
I don't think that song was in it. The song in the Pitch Perfect movies was something like
Flashlight.
Flashlight.
That was in it, but she had that song was in another movie. I can't.
Okay, but she says, "Gonna love myself. No, I don't need anybody else. Can't help myself. No, I don't need anybody else. Anytime, day or night." I'm like, what? You're talking about rubbing one out? What?
Oh no, she has a very nice voice. My daughter listens to her religiously, and it's one of let's just put it this way: it's one of the few pop stars that she listens to that doesn't drive me up the freaking wall.
You know what happens, Lance, if you're listening to the pop music and it's annoying to you? That means you're old.
Yeah, I found out. Half the stuff my wife listens to, I was like, "The hell are you listening to?"
You're like,
it sounds like
you're
noise.
like Grandpa Simpson. I used to be it. I used to be with it. And then one day, what I was with wasn't it. It'll happen to you too.
I mean, you and your daughter don't bond over listening to some William Eyelash?
William Eyelash?
Billie Eilish?
No. Although my daughter has a bit of my musical, my love of music, I guess. I pass that on to her. And so I show her a lot of like the old punk bands and stuff that I used to listen to, and she's into it, dude. So that's kind of nice. We've been bonding over some of those old songs that I listened to when I was in high school.
Yeah, I bet she calls it classic rock.
That's the day that I give her up. I'm just
Dude,
kidding.
I about had a midlife crisis at 35 when I heard Blink 182 on the classic rock station. I was like, where has my life become?
Nobody likes you when you're 43.
Yeah, right?
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, I was listening to sometimes like to go to bed. I'll DirecTV has like those music stations or whatever, and I think it was the adult alternative station I flipped through and stuff, and they were playing like Green Day and Blink and stuff, and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like it was like contemporary alternative or something weird.
Yeah, but that's
like
not
that.
as bad. That's not as bad as if they played Blink 182 and then Kenny Loggins is the next song.
Like, if you
don't lump me in with Kenny Loggins, man.
Did you like all the small things? You might also like Kenny G. check out Seal. You know.
You go dark. Do you like Adam's song? Well, here's Eric Clapton, Tears in Heaven.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of our. What is going on with my camera, dude? I must be. But
yeah, Matt brought that up at the top of the show, if you recall.
What?
The
Your
pixelated
filter.
camera.
Yeah. No, but my camera keeps like falling backwards or something. I think the mount is loose. But that brings us to the end of our show. A special thank you to Matt from the Absolute Geek Podcast for coming on tonight. Go check them out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They're live every Friday night on YouTube. You can find the link to their channel right on our YouTube page. We also have a couple links to some of our favorite videos from Absolute Geek. So go check them out. And then Max should be back with us next week where we're going to talk about An American Pickle with Seth Rogen, which I said Max. Matt, you and I were going to talk about. I was going to try to make you come on next week too. So
you're going to try to make me come on to watch American Pickle?
That's not, I don't know why, but I saw.
I'd rather brine myself.
I saw that movie. I was like, that looks like a Matt movie.
Yeah. Matt looks like he likes pickles. Movies about
you made
pickle-related things.
Dude, you had us watching Sugar Bear, so don't.
Oh, Brigsby
Bear.
Yeah, Brigsby Bear.
Although
Brigsby
Sugar
Bear
Bear is
great.
a fantastic movie.
Which Sugar Bear are we talking about? The one that you can only find on Pornhub? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, so next week we're going to talk about American Pickle. Go check out couchcrunchers.com, Couch Crunchers on Facebook, Instagram, and until next time, keep on geeking on.